What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Another video means another dopamine high because I had to buy something to feel something, and today we're back at it with another review. Today's review is NECA's The Stone Heart Predator. This is another large and in charge Predator figure, and at any point you do want to get this figure for yourself. I personally got my Stone Heart Predator off of Walmart's website because they actually had them on sale for $36.99, which is what usually the normal Predator figures go for, so I saw that as a great opportunity to save some money, so I went for it and got them off of the Walmart website. But you can also get this figure at Target, like most of the Predator figures that I do get, but at Target he goes for $46.99, and you have to get him in person. There is no web page for him on the Target website. And then for $59.99 you can get him off Entertainment Earth, and then for $62.99 you can get him off the Big Bad Toy Store, and finally for $61.95 you can get him off of Amazon. So you have all these options for yourself to get the Stone Heart Predator. If you want to get them online, there will be links in the description of the video, so you can go check those out if you want to. And if you are like me, and when you saw the Stone Heart Predator for the first time, you were wondering what he is from a Predator video game called Predator Concrete Jungle. This released on the PS2 and the original Xbox. The backstory about Stoneheart was he was the pack leader of the Dark Blade clan, and him and two of his other brothers, Longspear and Swift-Knife, went down the earth. They fucked around, found out, got captured by some humans. Those humans turned them into cyborgs, and in the game the Predator you play as faces these three brothers as mini bosses, and you have to fight them. And Stoneheart is the big baddie of the three because he is large and in charge. And yeah, that's pretty much the story of Stoneheart as far as we're concerned. And with all that said, let's jump on into the review. So taking a look at the packaging, and here we have another big box due to how large this figure is. We have some cool art on the front. We have the logo on the side, and then the back with a bunch of photos of Stoneheart and a brief description of what he is all about, which is always nice to see. And then, turning the box back around, we can have another nice large photo of the figure. And then of course we have everything that is included. So, nice to see that everything is there. And with all that said, let's open up the packaging and get into it. So getting into articulation, starting off with the head region, you can rotate his head 360 degrees. You can have him look up and down a decent amount as well. And then you can have him tilt his head side to side. And with all that, you can get a nice spherical rotation out of him, which is very nice to see because this allows the figure to look all around and not feel limited by any means. So very happy with the range of motion we have in the head portion of this figure. And then looking at his arms, you can rotate them in 360 degrees, but you do have to be careful because of the tubing or piping. You don't want to break it. So in theory you can, but it's semi-restricted by the wiring attached to his arm. So be very careful of that, but luckily these tubes and pipes are thick, so I don't think they're going to break very easily. And then you can have him bring up his arm and open up his arm a decent amount as well, so it's nice to see that range of motion there as well. And then when it comes to the elbow, you can have him bring up his forearm a decent amount. He's not doing a shoulder tap by any means because of his gauntlet clashing with his bicep, which is unfortunate to see, but there is a range of motion there nonetheless. And then in theory you can rotate the elbow 360 degrees, but yet again the tubing and the piping does kind of get in the way of that, and you don't want to tear that, so be very careful there. And then you can rotate the gauntlet 360 degrees, so that's very nice to see there, and there's no restraint from any kind of equipment, so very nice to see that. And then of course with the hand you can rotate 360 degrees and bend the wrist however you please. So overall, despite some limitation with the piping and the gauntlet clashing with his bicep, overall fairly happy with the range of motion we have in his arms. So looking at the torso articulation, you can have him lean back and forth a little bit. By no means is it a crunch, but that range of motion is there nonetheless. And then you can't even rotate his upper chest 360 degrees because of the pipes, because you don't want to break those. And you can't even rotate his stomach 360 degrees. It's just kind of still. Most Predator figures you can rotate the chest and the stomach independently, and then of course we can get a nice spherical range of motion nonetheless out of the upper chest, so there's that going for us. So overall, pretty okay torso articulation, seeing how much restraint that we do have. And finally, we have the legs, and you can bring up his legs a really good amount. You can get a full split out of this figure, which is really nice to see. And then you can rotate his legs 360 degrees, as you can with most Predator figures. Just be very careful that you do not want to snap off his leg. That would really suck. And then you can actually bring up his legs to an extent where if you want him to sit in a chair or off the ledge of a cliff or anything like that, you can have him do that as well, which is nice to see. And then going to the knees, you can get a nice knee bend out of this figure. By no means is it a butt kick, but you can still get action and running poses out of him. So very nice to see that he still has that range of motion there in his knees. And then, you know, bringing them back down, you can actually rotate the calves and the knee itself 360 degrees. So if you wanted to move that at all, you can do that, which is, you know, a nice thing to see on this figure. And then, of course, moving down to the feet, you can rotate them 360 degrees and bend the ankle however you please. So nice to see that as well. And overall, very satisfied with the leg range of motion on this figure. No complaints whatsoever. And pretty happy with the articulation overall throughout this entire figure. A little bummed out how some of the piping does restrain some of the figure, but not to an extent where I think it ruins the figure. So yeah, very happy for the most part with this figure's overall articulation. So when it comes to features and accessories, our boy Stoneheart here actually breaks tradition. Most Predator figures come with a swappable head, whether it's because of mandibles, biomask, or some kind of altercation with their face. But here, Stoneheart does not come with a swappable head whatsoever, and the reason for that is because his head can actually light up, and I think it's a very cool feature to have the 4 bulbs on the top of his head light up this bright blue. But because of that, his head is a little more expensive to produce than a normal Predator figure's head would be. But the really cool thing NECA decided to do was they still wanted to give this character some visual variation with his head, even though his head is kind of expensive to produce. So what they did was they made it so you can swap out the mandibles, so you can still have that visual variation, and they don't have to produce as many Stoneheart heads because of, you know, his cost of production. So I think it was very cool that NECA found a cost-efficient way to produce this figure while still giving us that visual variation. So that's just really awesome to see here. But yeah, the mandibles we do get are these like large, wide open ones that look like he's screaming or shouting at something. I just think it's very cool that NECA did decide to go through with this. You know, they didn't have to. They could have kept the sculpt as is, but they did go that extra mile as they usually do, and they gave us this cool, you know, a choice for a visual variation. But he still does have swappable hands, 4, which is a little less than what we usually get, but still swappable hands nonetheless. We have 2 open ones and 2 closed fists. And for the last of the accessories, we have the wrist blades, which are large and in charge, just like our boy here. You pop them in nice and easy like that. They ain't going nowhere. They feel nice and secure on his wrists. And I gotta say, I really do love this visual presentation, that nice metallic shine, the nice large and in charge aesthetic. Really just all coming together now with these equipped to him. And yeah, very happy with how these came out and how they feel. So when discussing the visual presentation of Stoneheart, there's so much I can go over because NECA does a really good job at recreating assets or characters from stylized or exaggerated media, and seeing that Stoneheart, the last time we saw him was in a PS2 game. NECA did a phenomenal job at bringing this character back to life and making it look like this is something we'd see in like a video game like made today, or like a live action show or movie, something of that nature. So I think NECA did a really good job at bringing this character back to life, and I think they did a really good job at like capturing the aesthetic of Stoneheart, because Stoneheart very much gives me like Frankenstein vibes, and I wouldn't be surprised if the creators of this character, if that's exactly what they were going for, because Stoneheart, you know, he was augmented, he was pretty much made in a lab to be this perfect killing machine, and you know, he has a lot of electricity running through him, and that's pretty much what keeps him going. And you can just see his skin color, how he has like this like kind of like deathly green, and it kind of blends in and plays well with the black and other scarring we see throughout his body. It just, you know, his color scheme just has this like Frankenstein aesthetic. If you see it, please let me know. If you think I'm crazy, you're probably going to let me know anyways, but that's just something I see with this figure, and I think NECA did a really good job at capturing, was just making him look like the Frankenstein that he is in the game. And outside his skin, I think NECA did a really good job at recreating and nailing the equipment and armor that Stoneheart comes with. I mean, everything that they got down from, buttons, lights, panels, screws, everything that's on the equipment looks like it belongs there. Nothing feels out of place. Everything looks sleek. Everything looks like, it was forced onto him. So I think it was very impressive how well NECA was able to do this. There's like even pieces of equipment that, you probably wouldn't even see in the PS2 game. And like the ventilation things on his back literally look like they were like forced onto him, as you can see the tears around him. And then of course, I think they handled the wiring pretty well. It doesn't necessarily ruin the figure's range of motion or anything. The figure can still move around and it doesn't feel like the wires are going to break. So overall, I'm very happy with the sleekness, the immersiveness, how lively and busy all of his armor looks. It looks like it all belongs there, and I'm very happy with the final execution of it. So if you couldn't tell, I'm very happy with NECA's execution of this figure, and with that said, we can move things on to size comparisons to put this boy into scale. Starting off with the armored assassin predator, and they're right around the same height. Then we have the laser shot predator, a xenomorph warrior. Jazz wears the Spartan Collection Deluxe Halo Infinite Master Chief, the Spartan Collection Spartan Hunter. Jazz wears the World of Halo 3 ODST Rookie. Hasbro Star Wars the Black Series 212 Clone Trooper. And finally, we have McFarlane's The Doomslayer. And here we are at the turntable segment of the video. This is pretty much where I go over what I like, just like critique the figure and just stuff like that. Just basically give my general thoughts and opinions and give you all something to bounce off of and go down in the comments section below and get a conversation started. Obviously, I like talking about this stuff, so I'll most likely reply to your comments. With all that said, I want to get more of the sour stuff out of the way with some critiques and things that I think they could have done with the figure. And the only criticism I actually have about the physical figure itself is that it can be a little bit of a hassle getting him to stand upright. He has some balancing issues because of his weight and height. And you can get a NECA stand or a dynamic stand, but that only helps just a little bit because he was still falling over for me. So that is the only thing that kind of irked me about this figure physically. And the only other thing I really have, and it's more of a nitpick / suggestion to NECA, is they could have included just a few more accessories. I know that for Stoneheart, he doesn't really have that much equipment to begin with in the game, and it even states that on the Xenopedia page. But I feel like they could have included, like some skulls or some spines, whether it's from a xenomorph or from a human, just something to spice up the accessory count for the figure, because I understand that this figure isn't cheap to produce because of his mold being so different from other Predators and also the electronics in his head. But I just feel like for what you pay, you don't really get a lot, accessories wise, so I feel like they could have just added a few more things just to kind of spice up and further justify the price. And then getting into the more positives and things I do like about this figure, starting off with the visuals, I think NECA does such a phenomenal job at making their figures look really, really good. The amount of detail they put into it is absolutely insane, and that is clearly seen in this figure, so this figure looks really, really good. And then another thing I really like is the feel of this figure. I know I said that the wiring kind of restricts the range of motion of the figure, but not really. It doesn't really stop the figure from moving. It's just more so you have to play around with the wiring so you don't tear it. So I think instead of the wiring being restrictive, it's just something that you have to be wary of. You can still get the range of motions that you could get if the wiring wasn't there. You just got to be careful. And the last thing I can really comment on as a positive is how NECA handled the head situation for the figure. This figure's head was already a little more expensive to make because of the size of the figure, but throwing in the electronics makes it even more expensive. And to cut down on costs, they gave us one head, but to still allow us to have that visual variation, they made the mandible swappable. So I think that amount of thought and dedication and care that NECA just showed us with that is something to take note of and give NECA praise for. At least I personally see it that way. So good job on NECA for tackling that so well, and in such a manner that it doesn't hinder us and make us lose out really on anything. And under the category of to be desired, there's not really much I can think of. I just kind of wish they threw in a few more accessories to further justify the price of this figure. So final verdict, do I recommend this figure? I would say yes, absolutely, especially if you're very interested in the expanded lore of the Predator or AVP franchise. And this is also a very different, a very more one-of-a-kind figure, not just because of his size, because we have the armored assassin, but because, you know, he's very different looking. He clearly doesn't look like a traditional looking Predator. His predlocks have been cut off. His equipment and armor isn't Predator in origin. There's just so much about him that makes him unique, and you know, the visual presentation, this is a very good looking figure. NECA makes sure that all their figures are jam-packed with detail and love and care, and then this is a very good feeling figure. So if you want to, you know, do toyography and get some cool photos and poses of this figure, you can do that as well. So I just feel like this figure has a lot going for him. So if you just avidly collect Predator figures, or you can just appreciate a really good figure, I would say that this is a very good figure visually and feeling wise. It's a very unique figure from the series of figures it comes from. So yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't pick up this figure unless you just genuinely don't like how this figure looks. So if you have this figure already, please tell me down below what do you like or dislike about this figure. Let's get a conversation started. But if you did enjoy this video, a like and subscription would be awesome. You don't have to comment. Moving your fingers hurts, I get it, but like I said, you want to bounce off anything I did say in this video, you're more than welcome to, and I'll most likely reply to your comments because I obviously do like talking about this stuff. And don't worry about the bell because we both know that shit is broken. And if you want to see more stuff like this, there's plenty of it up on the channel. I already have a series of NECA reviews from the Alien and Predator franchise, but I also do Star Wars and Halo stuff as well. So if any of that does interest you, you're more than welcome to go check it out, and I hope you have a great day, and please stay hydrated. It is important.